I was born here in the Pottstown area of Huntersville, North Carolina. I have lived in Mecklenburg County all of my 65 years with the exception of 4 years away between 1975 and 1979 when I was in college in Virginia. I was actually born over in the Long Creek community. My parents had this house built, which reminds me, we live right across the street. The house is right across the street from the school. The gray house on the corner of Central Avenue and Holbrook is where I was, well, not where I was born, but where I lived most of my life. But that house was built in the early 1940s by my parents. And shortly after that, my grandmother, my mother's mother, became critically ill. And so they rented this house out and moved over to Long Creek, which is where she lived, to help take care of her. And the family moved back into this home in 1961 after my grandmother had passed away. So I can recall from about 61, which I was about 4 years old, I can remember them painting the house. I can remember my mother digging up rocks in the yard, trying to make a smooth lawn, and wheelbarrowing rocks to a pile and that kind of thing, setting out flowers. I can remember the smell of some yellow paint. They painted, the house was first yellow before it was anything else. And I remember the smell of that paint. That's one thing that sticks out in my mind as a child. And while we were getting settled into the house, I can recall that.
Can you tell me your parents' names?
My father's name is Curly Barringer. And I'm going to talk about them, share some of the information on them in what I present later. My mother's name is Anna Greer Barringer. My mother was born in the Long Creek community. Her parents purchased property there to farm and to raise a family. And so for her first, I would say 14, 15 years, she lived in Long Creek in the family home on a farm. They farmed. And she went to school at a school up on Lake Norman, Rosenwald School, from 1st through 8th grade. My father, Curly Barringer, was born in a little area called Caldwell Station, which is between Huntersville and Cornelius. He was born to, his parents were Rosa and James Davis. They were sharecroppers, and they lived on the owner's property there in Caldwell Station, near the Caldwell Station area. When I think back on my childhood and when I was actually living here, there weren't as many houses here as there are now. There were a lot of children here, a lot of children my age, cousins and other neighbors that I made friends with, and lifelong friendships that were established at that point. There was a store here in the middle of the community that my aunt and her sister ran. There was a lot of traffic back and forth to that store during the day. I didn't go much because we didn't have a whole lot of extra money to do that, but a lot of people were back and forth to the store. That store was also key to this school here, to Torrance Lytle. A lot of kids went over there and got snacks for lunch and so forth, and a lot of the teachers went there on their way home from school or, on the way to work in the morning, stopped by to get whatever they would need from the store. But a quiet neighborhood, very family-oriented. This school, Torrance Lytle School, was the nucleus of this community, very much the nucleus of this community. And a lot of the activities from the school kind of determined some of the activities that the community got involved in. Football games, basketball games, that kind of thing. I can recall also at that age, the county used to do the mass vaccinations here on Sunday afternoon. So all the kids that were affiliated with Torrance Lytle, and this is a grades 1 through 12 school, okay? So you got little kids, teenagers and high school kids. But they came here for vaccinations on Sunday afternoons. You go to church, you could go home, eat, come back. There were busloads of kids coming here to get vaccinations and so forth. So yeah. I will never forget our school nurse, Mrs. Cherry, who was employed by the school system through Mecklenburg County. She was a very helpful and resourceful person. She, as far as I know, had a major hand in arranging the vaccinations here at Torrance Lytle that I mentioned a minute ago. She also, I can recall her talking to my mother when I was ill once in the 2nd grade. I had the flu. She came by to see me, and talked to my mom about some things she could do to help kind of facilitate my recovery, because I think it was like a 2-week situation, and I was really, really ill. She dropped by the house to see us and talked to my mom about what she could do, some little home things, and also some other pharmaceutical things she could do to help me kind of improve and get back in school.
High school.
Terrence Lytle closed in 1966, and in the spring of 1960, I was finishing the 3rd grade. And so the schools integrated here in Huntersville, so the elementary, middle, high school, all those integrated, but I was completing the 3rd grade when the school closed. And I remember when it closed, about 2 or 3 months before the end of the year, the lower grades went on a field trip to visit Huntersville Elementary. And I can recall seeing some dilapidated flooring and some chairs broken in the auditorium, and we were like little rebels. We were like, well, we got to come to this old raggedy school, and our school is in good shape. The gymnasium was fairly new, and so we had some comments about that. But we went on a field trip to see what the school was like and to just get a feel for what we were going to be dealing with in the fall.
Such a big part.
Well, I
of your
went
life.
1st through 3rd grade.
Okay. So
Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And at that time, many years ago, kindergarten was not a part of the school as it is now. It was more like a Head Start program. In my age bracket, kindergarten was June, July, August, prior to the 1st grade. And it was more, I can recall things like my mom had to bake me a gingerbread man one day. We had water sports where I had to take my bathing suit and take a towel and my flip-flops. I mean, those fun things. And snack was peanut butter crackers and orange juice. And just a coincidence that my teacher was a member of my church. The principal of this school was a member of my church. My teacher's assistant was a member of my church. So just really close-knit, and a real good situation for me.
Experiences.
Okay. I am Presbyterian, have been Presbyterian since birth. I was christened into the Presbyterian church. My father was AME Zion. His church is within this community. It's Huntersville AME Zion. I don't know whether when you came across the tracks coming in off of Old Statesville Road, if you were to look left, there's a little church down there. That church is Huntersville AME Zion. Used to be called the Little Mission. He went there, and my mother was Presbyterian. We always speak of the wife going with the husband. Well, my mother was so enthralled in her church work. Sunday school superintendent, elder, Presbyterian women. She was very much, and it wasn't even up for discussion. Both of them just assumed she would continue at her church, and she did. And she took us with her most of the time to the Presbyterian church that is over in the Long Creek area, where my grandparents had their farm. It's over. It is Catawba. My church that I was born into is called Catawba Presbyterian Church, which was formed from a merger of 2 churches, Miranda Presbyterian and Caldwell Presbyterian. They merged in 1958 to form Catawba. Okay? And that was all the black Presbyterian churches in this area, of course, were governed by the Catawba Presbytery, which was an all-black presbytery in this area. I can recall one major event, especially my sister when she was graduating high school. Her junior year, she was a marshal, and she, I think, played the piano maybe at the baccalaureate service, which is where Martin Luther King came and spoke. That year, I think that was 1963.
Where?
It was either at Johnson C. Smith University or the Coliseum. I cannot remember which one.
I think it was Johnson.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too, but I wasn't sure. So yeah, I knew she was all excited about that. I saw him. I walked right past him, and he saw me and all this stuff. So that was a real big major thing, and for all the graduates that were there, the graduates and the marshals as well. I can recall in the 1st grade when John Kennedy was assassinated. That was a big deal. I can recall an announcement over the intercom. I can remember teachers crying and, telling the students to put their heads down on their desk. I guess probably because they might not want to be bothered. But anyway, be quiet. But everybody was just visually upset. And when we came home from school, my mom, she said, "Did you all hear about the president?" And we said, "Yeah, she was cooking and stuff." And, it was a sadness over our home and the community. very definitely John Kennedy, and of course Martin Luther King. That was I would say for the community. I would think I'm thinking if I can recall correctly, that was more caused more upset than John Kennedy when Martin Luther King was killed. That was it was a real big deal, and just can recall the funeral. TV was on the funeral. Martin Luther King with the horse-drawn carriage with the casket. I mean, it was just very, very, very dramatic, very, very dramatic. And that's what everybody was talking about. That was the conversation for even the children, even us as children. He was to me and to the community at large. Martin Luther King Jr. was to me and to the community at large just a hero, someone that we could look up to, that we could respect, that we were proud of to be represented by, and so forth. This community, by way of the school on some level, but also in other ways too, was a very proud community. We were as self-sustaining as we possibly could be. We had a lot of women from the neighborhood who did domestic work to some of the other for some of the other families up there and across the tracks and so forth. So that was prevalent in those days, as you probably realize that it was. But we had some things going on down here too. My mother founded the Huntersville Community Bible Club in 1945. She hadn't been here that long, and one of the things she was saying was that she noticed that the women seemed to not have anything to do, and so she established the Huntersville Community Bible Club of ladies that come together monthly to study the Word, of course, but to also talk about the community and ways that they could enrich the community, ways that they could help the children in terms of their growth and adjustment and so forth. So one of the first things that the Huntersville Community Bible Club did was to arrange a community vacation Bible school. If school ended, I'm going to give you an example. If school ended on a Wednesday, that following Monday, that's when the Community Bible Club began. And they moved it around to churches. This year, St. Philip may have had it. The next year, Huntersville AME Zion might have had it, and so forth. The next year, Huntersville Presbyterian had it. They moved it around because all the ladies came from different churches. So they moved the Huntersville community. And it was a study, at least at first, this was before I came into existence, it was 2 weeks. The Bible school was 2 weeks. And then they narrowed it down to one. I don't know why that decision was made, but when I came along, it was 1 week. But it was like from 9 to noon, and we had devotion, we had classes, we had music, we had time outside, and then we had a closing exercise on that Friday night. Everyone came and presented what they had learned, and there were skits, there were other ways to present that. But it was a big thing, real major music portion of it. My sister and some other people, members of the community who were musicians and so forth, did the music. We had fantastic ministers. Just awesome. It was an awesome thing. This group also did original plays, and took those plays around to different venues and presented them. At Christmas time, they caroled. Went around and caroled, especially to the sick and shut in. The husbands walked with them and accompanied them to be safe and that kind of thing. So it was a major thing. In 1995, we had a 50th anniversary celebration of the Community Bible Club. Still in existence, and they still are in existence now. I don't know the last time they met, but they are still. I'm a daughter of the Huntersville Community Bible Club, and so are several other people. So we're trying. They're not meeting now, but we're hoping to revive it. Very worthwhile organization. Right.
Can speak to that.
Well, I think some of the West Side appeal, I would say, or attention, is largely because of Johnson C. Smith University on that side of town, and how that came to be. The donations and so forth, the philanthropic activity that took place with Johnson C. Smith, with the Biddles and all those, and the Smiths, and also that came to help create that learning environment. And we know it's Johnson C. Smith. And then we have the professionals, what we call the professionals, settled in that area largely. The Excelsior Club in the nucleus of that area, historic Excelsior Club. And a lot of people made their homes there. And as far as I could hear from the older people, anybody who thought there was somebody in the black community, they settled. They found somewhere to build a home over on the west side of town, and as my mother said, found themselves at some point in the Excelsior, socializing at a wedding or some sort of event. There was some political events held there and some other things, but we have to remember Pottstown. We didn't have that support that Johnson C. Smith had. We didn't have that, but we did have, historically, a Mr. Otha Potts who owned much of the land around here, who donated this land for the building of Torrance Lytle High School. This is a black man who, was wealthy with land and I guess money as well. But a small community, not formally organized community, who has since gelled into what we know as the Pottstown area. And of course, the Torrance Lytle High School being the nucleus of Pottstown, there's history in all of that as we also look at Second Ward and the other schools. I think, what was it, Sterling, J.H. Gunn, some of these other Second Ward. My mother, I'll tell you later, went to Second Ward. But this is a real critical, and this was a thriving community. Torrance Lytle helped to generate excitement, the homecoming, May Day, all that generated just major excitement in the community. Parental support and participation and so forth.
I was just going to mention.
Was a graduate from JCSU?
Yes, the principal of Torrance Lytle High School,
What's his name?
Isaac T. Graham, and that T stands for Torrance. Isaac T. Graham, who was a member of Catawba, an elder and so forth. Just an FYI, his father, Charlie Graham, was the principal of the Rosenwald School where my mother went to school for grades 1 through 8. Very, very high on education, stressed education. All his children were teachers except for, I think, 2, and he had about 7 children. They were all teachers, Mr. Graham's father and mother. And so, he not guaranteed, he valued education. I think this was not the only site that was possibly considered for this school. Mr. Graham had connections to many people in this community through the church and other sources as well. But as I said, he went to my church. He went to Catawba and had connections with a lot of people. And his father, the principal of the Rosenwald School, just highly educated. There was not, for his children, I didn't hear him say this, but they probably had no choice. You know what I'm saying? They had no choice but to go to school, okay? And so he
It's still wrong. I just need to tell her.
So he saw the need here to build the school here. This community was growing. It was a new community. I think the school was completed in 1939. The first graduating class was 1939. So this neighborhood was developing, because my parents' home was not built till the early 40s. So when they moved in this neighborhood, they were still working on the school, the main part of the school. So this was forming, and he saw potential here and saw an opportunity to make a difference in this community, by deciding or helping to decide that the school would be built here. I can see some activity going on first of all, to celebrate what Pottstown has been and is today. We even with this, this is a birthday celebration. All of this is a part of a birthday thing, but also at the same time, with the help of Miss Caldwell and others, finding this as an opportunity to celebrate and to remind the community of where we've come from and what Pottstown has meant to all of us. It's a time to celebrate, but also a kickoff point to look at what are we going to do in the future. We have children. We don't have quite as many children as we may have had at one time, but there are children here. There are needs in the community. Some of those needs are being met by this center here, the exercise programs and some other things. But Pottstown is very much alive. We have a committee going that's trying to deal with this school and the saving, preserving at least some portion of Torrance Lytle High School. That's a real major major step that is going on now. So if I did speak of it in the past, it wasn't anything intentional. I will tell you this, that when Torrance Lytle closed its doors, that had major impact on the community, major impact. This was the nucleus, it was just the community. You know what I'm saying? It played a big part in the community and the activities of the community and the children's lives within the community.
It seems like such a sense of pride, but y'all got to have control.
Excuse me?
Y'all got to have control over
Yes.
here a little bit.
Yes, and you know, several people will mention that, you know, when the closure occurred, when we were at that point, there should have been more activity, you know, in terms of trying to hold on to some of it or helping to determine what was going to happen with the building, with the facility and so forth. But you know, that was 1966, and times were different. When I say that, I mean, you know, even with integration and so forth, maybe some of the leaders in the community not feeling comfortable enough to speak out and say, we want this, we don't want this. And I don't know that speaking out against the school being closed would have made any difference. I don't know. That was a decision that was made by the board. So, but I'm saying, having some input in what would happen here, what programs would be put here, what would the school be needed for, or what would it be used for, that was not really addressed or brought out at that time. And it's taken some years for us to get to the point now where we are now, where we're talking about let's preserve this as for history, for posterity. So I am privileged to share with you today how we remember the Barringer family, which is my family, and I am proud to present this to you today. I hope that my reading is that you can understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to read slowly. I was asked to write about my parents, and I didn't know where to begin with that. So I went back to grandparents, my grandparents on my mother's side and my father's side. So I'm going to start there, okay? Leroy Greer was born in northern Mecklenburg County to Frank and Harriet Greer in the late 1800s. And this is Leroy Greer, my grandfather, here. Leroy Greer. This is not, of course, a picture. He was older, a working man. I understand from my mother that this picture was taken in downtown Charlotte on his way home from work one day. There were studios in downtown Charlotte where you could go and put on, dress up, at least up top, dress up and brush your hair down and all that, and they would do a portrait. And so this is where this was made. This is Leroy Franklin Greer, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. During his formative years, Leroy attended Miranda Grade School in the Long Creek area of Huntersville and helped to maintain the family's farm. As a young man, he ventured off to Danville, Virginia, and worked in the coal mines there. Katie Farr, which is my maternal grandmother, Katie Farr, and the same thing with her picture. On her way home from work one day, went to a studio, and this was the painting, the portrait that was made of her, Katie Greer, Katie Farr Greer. That's my maternal grandmother. She was born in Mecklenburg County as well and was raised in the area that is now Atrium. She was born in Mecklenburg County and was raised in the area that is now Atrium Health University. Her parents, unfortunately, died when she and her siblings were very young. They were raised by relatives and close family friends. Katie completed grade school and later attended Barbara Scotia College. She worked briefly in the Charlotte area, but eventually obtained long-term employment in Asheville, North Carolina, as a cook in several of the boarding houses. Leroy and Katie Leroy and Katie met in the early 1900s. By this time, both had worked for several years and acquired significant savings. Both were interested in purchasing land to farm and raise a family. Leroy and Katie were soon married and purchased close to 200 acres of land in the Long Creek community of Huntersville and successfully farmed for many years. The couple soon started their family. Anna was the third child. Anna is my mother. Anna was the third child born to Katie and Leroy on April 28, 1917. Having lost her father at an early age, Anna was responsible for most of the strenuous chores around the farm since her oldest brother left home at the early age of 16 to see what life was like beyond farming. There were 4 other younger male siblings who were able to do some of the lighter chores, but most of the critical, more strenuous chores fell to Anna. In addition to her daily farm responsibilities, Anna, along with neighbors and friends, walked about 6 miles to and from the closest school for African American children, a Rosenwald school, Caldwell Grade School, now Burgess Supply on Highway 73 on Lake Norman, served children from 1st through 8th grades. Upon completion of the 8th grade at Caldwell, Anna's mother, my grandmother, Katie Greer, made arrangements for her to room with a family in Charlotte near 2nd Ward High School, which was one of the 3 schools in Mecklenburg County where African American youth could attend high school in that era. So that she could complete high school. Anna graduated from 2nd Ward in the class of 1937. Anna was determined to further her education and made plans with relatives in New York to acquire employment and save her earnings to cover her tuition, room and board at Clinton College in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I will tell you this, a side note. My mother really wanted to go to Johnson C. Smith University, but her mother could not afford it. So she did the next best thing. Anna worked as a baby nurse for a Jewish doctor's family in Long Beach, New York, for over 2 years. She returned to Charlotte with earnings in hand and enrolled at Clinton College, graduating in the spring of 1940 with a degree in English. She went on to teach elementary school in Jefferson, South Carolina for 2 years. Curly Barringer, my father, born in March of 1914, was the youngest child of Rosa and James Barringer, who were sharecroppers near Caldwell Station between Huntersville and Cornelius, North Carolina. Curly attended Smithville Grade School in Cornelius through the 7th or 8th grade. Shortly after his last year at the grade school, plans were being made to build the Torrance Lido High School in the Pottstown area of Huntersville. Curly waited until construction of Torrance Lido was completed and enrolled in high school there. He graduated in the first graduating class, the class of 1939. Several of Curly's classmates in recent years spoke of him driving their school bus and picking them up for school. After graduating from Torrance Lido High School, Curly went on to attend Lincoln Academy in Kings Mountain, North Carolina for 1 year, but unfortunately was not able to continue due to family financial constraints. I'm going to show you now a picture of my mother. This was in the spring of, I think, 41 or 42. This is her senior picture at Clinton College. Her senior picture at Clinton College. This is my father, and you got to look at this really close. My father was employed, and you all may not know about this unless you are from Charlotte. He was employed at the Quartermaster, which was a big factory that made war equipment during World War II. Okay? That was one of his jobs. My father is the person with the glasses on, standing in front of the WSOC microphone. This was an event that was going on at the Quartermaster on this particular day. He was a part of a quartet that's shown here that was on WSOC doing some music at this particular event. So that's my father, and that was very close to the time that my mother took the picture. That's like 1941, 42. So they were about the same age at that time. And this gentleman is from Huntersville. In fact, he lives at that house. I can point to it. Mr. Luther Houston. He was a member of the quartet. So that's Mr. Houston, who lived in Pottstown, and then my father. The other two gentlemen, I'm not I don't know who they are. Okay? So, having met Curly, a native of Huntersville by now, Curly and Anna's courtship was in full swing. The couple was married in this date is not absolute, I'm not absolutely sure, was married in May of 1941. Both Curly and Anna enjoyed church work, valued education, and appreciated many genres of music. Anna had been a member of the Clinton College Glee Club, and upon graduation was offered an opportunity to further her vocal training in Chicago by way of a recommendation from the Clinton College choir director. After discussing this offer with her mother, it was decided that she would not accept it. Curly sang and played the piano at his home church in Pottstown, which was the Huntersville AME Zion Church, where he also served as Sunday school superintendent, a member of the men's choir, a member of the trustee board, and as church parliamentarian. He was known in the community to be an exceptional vocalist and pianist. He would later become a charter member of the Harmonaires, a local singing group formed by Curly and his brothers, who performed at area churches and other venues. They later acquired a bus, which allowed for more opportunities to share their extraordinary talents. Curly was a tax preparer and also sold shoes for the renowned Mason Shoe Company. In 1945, as I told you all earlier, Anna founded the historical Huntersville Community Bible Club, an organization who met monthly to share Bible study, to organize and plan their annual summer vacation Bible school for the entire community, to maintain their children and youth Bible study group called the Sunshine Band, who met monthly, the coordination of presentations of original plays, regular visitation to the sick and shut-in members of the community, and their annual Christmas caroling for the community, with an emphasis on encouraging the community's sick and shut-in. Anna was a community activist, as she would later serve as a poll volunteer, a member of the PTA boards of Torrance Lytle High School and North Mecklenburg High School, a member of the Huntersville Prison Board, a March of Dimes street captain, a member of the annual Pottstown Summer Festival Committee, a member of the Agricultural Extension Home Demonstration Club, member of the Golden Peacemakers Seniors Club, and a member of the Central Piedmont Community Chorus. At her church, Catawba Presbyterian, Anna served as ruling elder, Christian education director, church school superintendent, member of the chancel choir, member of the seniors ministry, and as a delegate to many denominational meetings and conferences. In 2011, Anna was recognized by the Presbytery of Charlotte for her outstanding qualities as a senior role model and her contributions to her local church and the Presbyterian Church USA. Curly and Anna's first child was born in September of 1942. There were 6 more children to follow, with the youngest child arriving in June of 1957. The couple lived with relatives for the first few years of their marriage, but yearned to have their own home with adequate space to raise their ever-increasing family. Toward the end of the 1940s decade, the couple purchased the property on Holbrooks Road, directly across the street from the Torrance Lytle High School. They hired one of the well-known African-American contractors in Mecklenburg County, F.M. Beaver, who built the home they had longed for many years. The couple settled in the home with their 4 children at the time, Jerome, Dolores, Gloria, and James. The family enjoyed their new home for many years, but in 1953 had to leave to help provide care for Katie Greer, Anna's mother, who had become very ill. Anna and Curly put their home up for rent from 1948 until 1961, when they returned to the Pottstown area. By now, the couple had 7 children. The couple made a decision that Anna would not work outside the home until their youngest child was enrolled in school, so that she could devote her time and attention to her children and ensure a consistency in their daily routines of homework, meals, and possible extracurricular activities. The older children attended and graduated from Torrance Lytle High School in the classes of 1960, 1962, and 1964. The 4 younger children attended and graduated from North Mecklenburg High School in the classes of 1967, 1971, 1973, and 1975. The family suffered the sudden death of husband and father with Curly's transition on Saturday, May 4th, 1967. He departed for work but never returned. He suffered an aneurysm while riding to work with a neighbor and passed away later in the day. The family was devastated but persevered as best they could. Anna was determined to continue rearing her 7 children as best she could with the help of fervent prayers to the Almighty. With her 7 children, Anna continued to stress excellence in education and also encouraged extracurricular activities in music, church activities, and community service. She provided stability for her children and continued to set high standards in all areas of their lives. The years passed quickly for this family. Anna began work at Huntersville Hospital in the fall of 1963 when her youngest child started first grade. She worked there full-time until her retirement in 1982 as a geriatric technician. Additionally, Anna worked part-time at the hospital for 2.5 years longer, but ended her part-time employment there based on her doctor's orders. Her children would go on to further their education and settle into their careers: heating and cooling, surgical technology, high school choral director, transport operator and Vietnam veteran, high school English teacher, high school English literature teacher, quality engineer for General Motors, and a Mecklenburg County social worker. All of the children participated in their church's choirs and ensembles, with one of the siblings releasing a gospel CD in Detroit, Michigan in 2007 entitled "Have You Tried Jesus?" The family suffered dramatic losses in 2013 with the loss of the oldest sister and daughter, and in 2015, the oldest brother and mother, Anna Barringer, beloved mother, grandmother, mentor, teacher, and friend. The remaining children and grandchildren continue today to celebrate the legacies of their extraordinary parents and grandparents who experienced many challenges and trials, but are grateful to God to have been reared by 2 of the wisest, wittiest, and most talented individuals in the world. We remember and honor the Curly and Anna Barringer family, whose legacy of love, respect, and generosity is a treasure and will always be remembered.